Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're having a look at another devblog for Update Red Skies, and this is for a new high-ranking jet, the Yak-28B. But this is completely different to some of the other jets that we've seen because this is a frontline bomber. It has a lot of interesting aspects to it, and I would actually say is probably going to be pretty fun in the game, even if people just use it to kind of grind out the USSR tech tree. It might be one of those picks if you don't want to pick up a premium like the SU-7 and use it to actually grind through some stuff kind of passively while playing the game. Let's have a look at the history of this vehicle. The Yakovlev Design Bureau began work on an improved version of the Yak-26 aircraft, which had a few issues when it came to the actual fit in the Soviet military. This happened in 1956, and according to the requirements needed, the new Soviet frontline bomber was to be able to carry up to 3,000 kilos worth of bomb load, have equipment for delivering a nuclear bomb, and also be equipped with incredibly good engines. This would allow the aircraft to accelerate to speeds of more than 1,500 kilometers per hour with an afterburner and reach a height of 16 to 17,000 meters. Obviously, this wasn't an easy task because these requirements were very high, but it was still possible, and the design team eliminated the initial problems of the Yak-26 design, adapted the new aircraft to accommodate more powerful engines, and also expanded the bomb compartment for the increased bomb load. The prototype, which was built off the basis of the Yak-26, took off in 1958, and after improvements to the construction of the vehicle, 2 more prototypes were built, and the new jet bomber went into production under the Yak-28 name. And a little bit later, in 1960, a version of the aircraft with a radar sight and a 23mm cannon appeared that received the designation the Yak-28B. And in total, over the years of production, there was at least 1,150 aircraft of the Yak-28 series produced, where bombers were not only built, but also electronic warfare aircraft, reconnaissance aircraft, training modifications, and even interceptors. The interceptor ones are actually really interesting. Missiles abundant, so maybe in the future we'll see something like that. So the Yak-28B is going to be after the Tu-14T in the USSR tech tree. It was also released on the dev server 9.3, meaning that it was a pretty high BR for a bomber, which kind of always worries me when I see a high BR for a bomber, because it reminds me of stuff like the Buccaneer and the Vautour that have a pretty rough time when not flown exactly in a specific way, which isn't exactly fun. But the thing about the Yak-28, it has a bunch of stuff going for it, and a nice little collection of ideas, which make it into, I would say, a pretty interesting vehicle with a pretty unique playstyle. So the first thing is this vehicle has some bombers which are very similar to what you find on stuff like the IL-28, the 3,000 kilo bomb. It can also carry 1,500 kilo bombs as well, meaning that you can pack a hell of a punch, and maybe in ground forces, in ground realistic, if maybe a point is being capped, or if you just want to flatten an area, that 3,000 kilo is going to really come in handy. And since the Soviets already have a pretty good lineup with the T-72A and T-64A, it's nice to have a complement with it in the air, which isn't the IL-28, because the IL-28 has that killing power as well, but it is obviously a lot slower. This machine has 2 afterburning engines on it, meaning that it is incredibly fast for a bomber as well, and also has access to a 23mm as an offensive armament. Now, don't be fooled, this 23mm is not going to mean you can absolutely annihilate everything that's around, because it only has 50 rounds. So it's something that can be used in a pinch, but it's not something that you're going to carry the game with. It's something that after dropping your bomb to kill a base or to kill some ground targets, maybe you can attack the enemy in a little bit of a way. And also, since it's the same BR as the Su-7s and also very close to the MiG-21s and the MiG-19s, you're probably going to get some nice air support as well while you're running around in your Yak-28. The major issue, though, when it comes to bombers like this is the fact that because of the bomb loads, because they're not very big, I don't mean like size-wise, I just mean amount of bombs. If you compare this to, let's say, the Buccaneer, for example, or if you compare this to the Vautour, or even the Phantom, if you feel like doing that comparison, the Yak-28B has quite large bomb loads, but they're all in single or dual bombs, meaning that you won't be able to hit multiple targets at once. And the major issue with that is it means your versatility is incredibly low when it comes to air realistic, and you'll be able to nuke one target, but that's really about it. And generally you want that versatility of having different bombs, so therefore you can hit different targets instead of just one massive one. So you'll be a little bit less useful there. And also because of this, it means that if you want to continue to do this, you're going to have to land on the airfield, you're going to have to rearm, and then you're going to have to get back into the fight. But the problem with this is it's pretty much impossible to do that at this tier at the moment. Airfields are not really defense for or against, enemy planes in high-ranking battles. The fact is the planes go too fast, the guns don't really do anything, they don't even most of the time if a plane is going around 950 to 1,000 kilometers an hour, they just don't turn on. They can just freely strafe you, which is why a lot of people have welcomed the SAM change when it comes to air realistic. But air in general. The problem is we haven't seen what the SAM change looks like, and if it is as deadly as, let's say it's just crazy deadly, so you can't approach the airfield, and then obviously this is a big positive for the Yak-28 because it means it can land and rearm and then get back in the air, which would be really nice. But the thing is, I don't think it's going to be that, so landing is still going to be rough for vehicles like this. At the end of the day, if the meta stays the same and you aren't going to be able to land, then you get one bomb load which isn't very good, and then you either go to the moon or you try and get back to the airfield and get gunned down while you're trying to land, or while you are landed, which is generally how this works. And also with the strike fighter change, remember when it comes to the strike fighters, they now spawn in the air, so a lot of stuff like the Jaguar around this BR, a lot of stuff like the Harriers around this BR, so you'll probably get hunted pretty hard, just like when I was playing the Vautour, it was pretty rough. But at the same time, at least this thing can defend itself. It doesn't just have the 23mm as an offensive armament, it also has flares as a defensive armament. So you will be able to soak up missiles from the points of view of flares. That is actually really useful for a machine like this. So that gives it a lot of staying power in a battle, instead of just being annihilated by whatever missile finds you appealing. So it has good acceleration, good top speed, an interest in 23mm, and also access to flares as a defensive thing. So if we compare this to a lot of other bombers that are around the place, it definitely seems a lot nicer to use, but it's still obviously going to have its issues. My thing personally, when it comes to stuff like the Yak-28, is I'd much more prefer to see these vehicles than the massive strategic high-altitude bombers that people have been asking for years. The stuff like the B-52 or the B-36 or the Bear. I think it's the TU-9. I don't think, no, it's not the TU-9. You know what I mean, though, like the B-36 copy. Then I would much rather see vehicles like this than those, and also the V-bombers, because the larger vehicles with ridiculous payloads are either going to be way too good for the game, and just flatten game modes like Air Realistic, or they're going to be completely useless because they're just going to get a missile at them and they're going to die. So there's no real middle ground. For the Yak-28, there is a middle ground. You know, even though the bomb load isn't the best, it's still okay, and it has all these other features which make it interesting to play and hopefully interesting for people to fly. It is an end-of-the-line vehicle, though. This means that its modification costs are kind of through the roof, but for a bomber that you kind of passively grind, I suppose that isn't too bad. It could be a lot worse. Hopefully something comes after it, or hopefully they change the system for end-of-the-line vehicles so their modification costs aren't ridiculously high, because when you see vehicles like this, or you see vehicles like the Mars, for example, in the French ground tree, that's a pretty low BR vehicle for an end-of-the-line vehicle, but because it's an end-of-the-line vehicle, it has ridiculous modification costs, and that just kind of hurts it. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.